Okay.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to Spinner Rack. Today we're talking about DC news, right? We saw some very troubling things this week, and we definitely had to comment on some of the issues. But the first and primary, the number one issue that we've heard is there's the bloodbath going on over at DC. And my gosh, some of the top talents are getting, well, some of the back end executives are getting knocked out. They've been there for many, many years. So I'm here once again with the crew themselves, Cal and Petey. Hey, I'm going to let Petey take this on. Intro, baby.
Well, I guess the first thing I would say, let's start off with some good news. And look, we're getting absolute Wonder Woman edition.
So this is Bleeding Cool, right?
They finally, this is what Bleeding Cool, because they have they got a lot of the other stuff that's going on too. But this is good news for me because they, anything that was a decent seller or okay seller, they put that on the side for absolute editions. But anything that's outside of Jim Lee, of course, you got to make the Jim Lee. Well, I don't know why there's an absolute edition of For Tomorrow, the Superman For Tomorrow.
Because the art is great. That's it.
So I mean, we got this. This is coming, which is great. So now, what other good news do we have? We have
Why is that good news?
Prequel.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that story. I think it was a fantastic, great story that came out, and the fact that they just came out with a what do you call that? A graphic novel. That seems to be selling well. I think when you look at Amazon, I think it was one of the top graphic novels out there. Big up for DC, big up for Fabric, and for Jeff Johns, of course. Jeff Johns at this moment is a hot hand.
Sequel.
Yeah, I think they said it's going to be like a one shot, but it's going to be possibly informing the universe. Wait. Are you disagreeing somehow, Cal?
Yes, I'm disagreeing.
All right, So then we plow on, Petey. Plow on.
What?
What do you got to say, Cal?
Disagreement. It's not going to work. They did this. They're thinning the soup, getting a sequel out of this.
They're supposed to.
I told you guys this stuff is going to be good enough.
I mean, you guys are like, no. They already left the door open so they can do a sequel for Doomsday Clock. Some of this stuff needs to be done. Okay, that's it. It's not like, you know what, the numbers were good. We got to get some more money out of this, like Secret Wars. What we're doing, like Secret Wars 8. Secret Wars 2015, along those lines. I just don't see what else do you have to say about this story.
Well, let's keep it infinite crisis, millions of crisis. Marvel did their millions of Secret Wars in one big Secret Wars.
Infinite crisis is DC right now in terms of their firing and layoffs. That's where you got crisis.
Well, wait. We're gonna get to that in a second. We're gonna get
That's
to
where
that.
the skies are turning red.
And then the last bit of news outside of the bloodbath is now that Marie Evans, she's the top person now. And everyone else was let go. Everyone else was gone after that. And we're worried about our boy, everyone's favorite, Jim Lee.
Superman? They're not getting rid of Superman.
Jim Lee drew this. This is another auction thing.
I know. I'm just giving you a hard time.
But this is what they'd be losing. Marie is not reporting. It doesn't have to report to Jim Lee. So there's speculation from some sectors that he's the next to go. But they let a lot of people go at this.
Why would they let Jim Lee go when he's not doing anything? And he's pretty much, she doesn't have to report to him. That means she's going to do the work. He gets to take his 3-day nap, get up.
Oh my gosh.
Draw some art, make some money.
What's
and go back to sleep.
Why are you always dissing Jim? Why the hell are you always dissing Jim?
Because it's funny.
Cool, No, but it's funny. He's not right. Now you sound like Trump. Oh, it's funny. You want to insult and give someone a name. No, he is cool, dude.
I'm not insulting Jim Lee as an artist. Okay, we all know hands down that Jim Lee is better than 99% of the guys out there, even on his worst day. Now, as a publisher, I don't mind coming over there and taking a few shots for some giggles and some laughs, because Didio was pretty much the front man taking all the hits, and Jim Lee was over there explaining he was explaining storylines that people didn't like. Okay, so yes, Jim Lee will come over there and he will take some shots as a publisher, great artist, and that's what we know him for. Now that being said, okay, once Jim Lee Again, why would you get rid of Jim Lee when this guy can turn out this much for you? And all we got to do is keep him rested with his regular nap time, and we're good.
So I don't even know what to say about that. Going back to, wait, somebody just made a comment. 3 Jokers was hot. What are you guys talking about? You see, even even you guys see that people like 3 Jokers. And again, informing on that universe, Batman knew that can I say what it is, Petey, about the 3 Jokers?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Spoilers.
Batman knew who the Joker was all this time, and even know who his family is. There were 3 Jokers, so let's get that out the box. There was 3 Jokers, there's no question, and that's what he was dealing with over the years. So so you dislike it, but the populace liked it. It's going to be the hottest selling comic of the year. It's going to be the hottest one of the top of.
I had a comment to that. You know that Fabian, what was it,
Narcissia? Yeah.
He said for the X-Men, he had a bit where he said Cyclops had a 3rd brother. And they're now doing a story about that umpteen years later. Only the nuts are going out and buying that, the same nuts that have bought the 3 Jokers. Because it's like, this issue of the X-Men now is going to go up in price because Mr. Simpson said, your 3rd Summers brother. He said, no, 3. Oh, I'm sorry, I mean 2. Like, no one asked for this stuff. But if you get a good artist, you get a hot writer, like Jeff Johns and Fabakar, like, you're going to get success. And people who like that thread that they heard way back when with I think Grant Morrison. So that's what it is, in my opinion.
And we have to take that with a huge grain of salt, okay? Because one of our people just came out and said something totally different about that. So let's get into the big news on DC, guys. Okay, this is called DC Bloodbath, right?
Yes.
All right. So the question is, basically, it looks like the entire marketing of DC was just totally decimated. I mean, we're just talking about they're just getting rid of everybody.
Yes.
People who've had over 50, 60 years, combined, I think they have over 100 years of experience, all of these guys who've been there. And DC now has been taken, just to remind people, DC was taken over by Warner Brothers, which was taken over by AT&T. So DC's always been part of Warner Brothers for a while. But it was taken over by AT&T, and AT&T is trying to make, they spent a lot of money on this property, on, the Warner Brothers studios and HBO and DC, and they are trying to get this stuff to generate more cash and, of course, stop losing money. So they cut the LA staff a couple of months ago, 2-3 months ago, and now they're cutting the upper echelons of DC, and it's been pretty bad. It's been pretty brutal. And they're basically promoting writers and artists who they're getting rid of some of the older ones. I don't want to say older, but more expensive ones, and getting in and promoting some of the more up and coming artists and writers now. Which is, I give credit, good luck to all those guys too. But I think we need to also look at this as an opportunity. Probably this may be the next new comic age, golden age, where people. Artists and creators are going to come out with new things and reach out to new audiences and give us a whole new renaissance. This may be the new golden age. Of course, right now it looks like a depression. It looks like the darkest night that a lot of these guys have. But I'm hoping that these crazy cuts of what's happening during a pandemic, which are nuts, hopefully that they're able to turn this around and create something. Especially the fact that the marketing department, who I just want to give a big shout out that when we've been at cons, the marketing department has helped us out a couple of times. Right, guys? And so hopefully we'll continue to have those guys.
The marketing department is the ones that allow people to talk to the artists.
Exactly.
I would say the thing that I would say, ultimately, the marketing department kind of took over the comics in the 90s. You could see them push for more events. So that's the only thing I would say against that sort of thing. But at the same time, it's hard to hear so many people lost their jobs. So
yeah, it's horrible. It's like horrendous. What's your take on this, Cal?
Well, I'm hoping that these new round of layoffs they're layoffs I'm hearing, are in the same vein as the others, where people had time. They gave them like 3 months to get themselves, it wasn't automatic. that they did have time to look for, new employment, weren't just being thrown out on the street, for lack of a better phrase. I really don't know. I expected this to happen, that there would be, that they would do a lot of what they call restructuring, and that would mean layoffs. But because of also what's going on, thanks to COVID, and revenue is not necessarily what it is, I don't know if they're taking advantage of that to say, well, look, we're just going to really clean house here. We're going to try to downsize this so we can try to, under the auspices of making it more profitable. But comic books in and of themselves have never been this very profitable medium. Can you make money? Yes, but this is pretty much where you go and you generate all those ideas that are going to make more money for you in terms of television, in terms of licensing, in terms of films. This is where you went and you put in that particular money, where these guys could go cut loose and they would come up with these, ideas, and then you could translate them there. I don't know if AT&T really understands this, or if these guys are feeling a crunch and they're like, look, we want our money back and we're going to get it one way or the other. And if we got to let some of you guys go, that gets us some money. And then we'll see if we can get some money this way. And then you got guys like Van Cyber, coming out, DC's going to, stop. They're only going to do digital. If you really want to put a knife, if you really want to put a knife in the comic book industry, let DC do that, because Marvel can't sustain this on their own. And those small publishers can't do it at all. So I'm really uncertain what the future looks like, because I don't know if AT&T understands exactly what they've got there. With Warner Brothers, DC had a parent company that pretty much allowed them to, get stuff done, because if not, DC would have been belly up and gone with the DC implosion in the 1970s. But DC could come, you could make some mistakes, you could not necessarily be as profitable, but because they were part of a much larger parent company, that allowed them a lot of cushion where they could do certain things and still come back and then have like some really great years like they did in the 80s. I don't know if AT&T understands that. I think Disney has a better understanding of that, where Marvel gets to come over and do some wild stuff that I would never approve of, in terms of somebody who is like, what the hell are you guys doing? What do you mean you got like 17 covers for this one book? What the hell is that? What do you mean these guys got to buy 150 copies of a book to get this one cover? How is that making us any money? I don't think they would necessarily go around for it, but they're pretty much left alone to sort things out for themselves, so long as they don't start bleeding money, which comics have never really been to that point. They may not, you had like Marvel going bankrupt, but it was never to the point like where these guys were on fumes. They may have made some poor business decisions, but they were never like to the point where, okay, at the end is nigh and the skies are red. I don't understand. I don't know if AT&T understands that. I don't know what they want to get out of DC in terms of the comics. Okay, I don't know what they want to get there. If you're looking, well, I want to see, X amount of profit, you may not be able to get that from comics. Comic books in terms of a market, their heyday was back in the 1940s with World War II, and they've had declining sales ever since then. It's not that type of medium. It never has been. So now, I really try to put my mind to it to say, look, I don't know what these guys want out of DC Comics. And because of that, I don't know if they're going to get it based on all of the layoffs that they're doing at this point. I don't know if this would be happening if the economy wasn't what it was right now. Okay, but it really just seems to me that I don't think they understand how that division, comic books work overall, because I don't think you're going to be getting, again, I'm at a loss, because it's hard for me to go too much further with it. I'm not sure what it is that these guys want or what these guys are looking for, and why they think they're going to be able to get it with this mass amount of layoffs that they're doing.
I mean, yeah, you got it right. And again, I gotta just say, I'm sorry for the families of the creators, the artists, the execs who are all losing their jobs during this difficult time right now, because it sucks. Because right now, where are you gonna go? Even if you have 2-3 months, Marvel's not hiring. Image is hiring. I'm not sure. And I think PD and I touched base on what are they gonna do. Especially when you've been in the company for over 20 years, some of these guys, or 15 years. How do you pick up those puzzles? And that's why I'm trying to keep a light at the end of the tunnel, where I'm saying I'm hoping that some of these guys can get together somehow and be able to create new avenues, create a renaissance in this whole thing. Because, you know, we have to look at, say, if the old model wasn't working, as you're saying, Cal, something else has to do. And I've been advocating on this channel, and you guys have been shooting me down, where I've been saying that they gotta get new characters. They have to be more diverse. They have to try different things. That's the only way it's going to work. And you know, Petey was saying about the Comicsgate guys. Some of those guys are huge crowdfunding. They have a huge crowdfunding markets, and I don't know if the future may hold that for some of the comic creators and these guys who are no longer part of DC. But you know, it's tough. I mean, I'm not even sure where they're going to go from here, other than probably they'll be the new Image. You know, I'm not sure. They have the contacts, they have the connections, they can get access to the talent. You know, it's just a question of having the money and the push to do it. And I hope they do. I hope they do. I hope they're able to reinvent themselves. I hope they're able to do better than where they were before, or whether monetarily or have more freedom, or be able to do what they want instead of always waiting for who the new corporate bosses are going to be. So I mean, kudos to them. And like you said, the writing's been on the wall for quite a long time, and these American comics have not ventured as far as they could. But I have to disagree on one thing, though. I think the way you look at DC, the way that you look at Marvel, they have been the generators of the billions of dollars that the studios have made. The IP that they created has done it, and the stories that they've written has set up the framework that these characters go on forward. And these if you look at it, if this is a typical normal what do you call that relationship between a studio and a creator, they would be getting like a 3% royalty or a 2% royalty, right? Which should be feeding into the comic books, which will feed back into the comic books, which they can utilize to develop and hire better talent. I wouldn't say not the talent they have, but hire more talent. Be able to do more things. And I think what's happening is that all that money that's made over there is kept over in the studios. It's kept over in the TV. It never comes back. They don't, but they should. They should be able. And so the only reason they're kept on by a lot of these companies like Marvel and DC is like, hey, it's an idea generator, and they're like, hey, probably we can end up using some of these ideas later. That's my thing. What's your thought, Kyle, PD?
Well, ultimately, I was commenting back to Metal Blood Lord 666 2723, but ultimately, I wanted to chime into one other thing. I'm sorry to shift to something else, because there's one other big thing that happened during this this bloodletting. Do you guys know Mark Doyle, the editor Mark Doyle?
No, not off the top.
Nope. All right, so hold on. Let's look at this. Basically, remember the Batman and Catwoman proposal issue?
Yeah.
Well, Mark Doyle was recently canned, right? He was recently fired. And obviously, Tom King worked with him, so he had some glowing things to say about, Mark Doyle here. But Tom Brevoort, he said, hey, Tom King, aren't you the guy who got him fired? There was egg on Tom King's face yet again, because he pushed out on Batman 24, the proposal issue. He said this in press that, he loves Mark Doyle, but, he needed a better artist on it. And Mark Doyle being the editor saying, hey, David's on vacation. He said, no, we need it. And he put his foot down. And then soon after, Doyle was moved off of that book. And then now he was saying so many glowing things about Mark Doyle, but at the same time, oh no, it's changed to something else. But, ultimately, Tom Brevoort said something, reminded everyone about what happened. So it's a sad day, another sad day for Tom King.
Yeah, that's not cool. But I mean, so let's move on to the Marvel. I mean, we know Marvel is going to. There's rumors that there's going to be a huge cut coming up.
About that, they said that that's happening. That's like months away or something like that.
January 1st. I mean, at least they're waiting. Unlike DC, those guys cut these guys before the holidays, you know, which I think is like, you know, Scrooge's as possible. If there's such a word, you know, but at least Marvel's going to wait till the new year if they have to do it.
Okay.
If they have to do it.
I don't know. I think at this point, I think a cut is a cut, right?
Yeah.
A cut is a cut, but do you want to know, at least go through the big, I don't know, probably right. Then you say, hey, probably you won't get gifts, probably you won't do certain things. Who knows?
Look, we knew if DC was making those cuts, the Marvel were going to make their cuts as well. And that's why, again, what I'm saying, what the initial cuts were, look, you're going to be laid off, but you got 3 months. So you had some time. I don't know what the situation is with these. I don't know if they're effective immediately, or if they got a couple of weeks as opposed to 3 months. But if they get the same amount of time, then they're not being ushered off in the middle of the holiday season, either one of them. So the bottom line is, look, you know, the cut's going to be a cut. You know what's coming down the pike. So, and the thing is, these people who work, I don't work in publishing, and I don't know how that works, but I would always think these people pretty much go to the same places to get work. You know, so if you're not working for Marvel, you're going to DC. If you're not working for DC, you're going to Marvel. If you're not working for either one, you know, you're looking for something within publishing because that's where your career has been at the end of the day. So I'm not sure what the market is for that right now. My main concern, you know, aside of the people and their, positions, their profession, and making certain they can still make ends meet, you know, support themselves, support their families, whatever that may be. My hope is that, you know, this stuff that I'm hearing, I don't like when I hear speculation out of guys like Van Sciver who have been predicting the downfall of comics ever since they were able to make money with Kickstarter and give themselves a salary that way. Again, but if you're not familiar with Kickstarter, when it first started, this was a place you could go and you could generate some revenue in order to get your book published. Okay, in order to get the book published. So you didn't have to worry about necessarily paying the artist and the printing costs and the things you would have done for advertising. You could go there and you could get all of that money from people who were like, yeah, this looks like a good project. We want to support you. And then you could get the book done. Now, you were then supposed to publish your book and live off the sales of that particular book. At some point that changed, because it would be that, okay, I'm putting out the first issue of Pringles Man, #1. And I would go and I would do a Kickstarter for it, and then I'd produce it. Now I'm doing a Kickstarter for Pringles Man #2. And I'm like, wait a minute, didn't you make any money off Pringles Man #1? Why are you coming back for another Kickstarter for Pringles? If you're not making any money off the sales of your book, okay, then what are you doing? You're going to Kickstarter and you're pretty much getting a salary, you know, from Kickstarter, you know, and that's how you're making your money. And then the books are something else. So that was something that I noted, because if you have a series and you've done a Kickstarter for, you've had 12 issues and you've done a Kickstarter for all 12 issues of this particular series, it's either one, this series is not sustainable on its own, or two, you're making a lot of money off this series and a little bit of money off a Kickstarter as well. But these guys did that, and then it became, well, look, since I can make money on a Kickstarter, let's forget the fact that I got my start at Marvel or DC Comics, and a lot of people saw my art or stories over there and they followed me over to the Kickstarter. But since I can make money over here, then these big two companies their days are numbered. I may have to talk about it for 10, 20, 30 years that they're going to go down, okay? But their days are numbered. So I've never really caught into that. When you hear cats like, Van Sciver or Liefeld, and they've always got something about, comics are going to pretty much go down. But then I said, well, look, if an entity like DC or Marvel goes down, do you honestly think that your Kickstarter project is going to be something to keep comics sustainable? I don't think so. So I'm not sure why they come out with these particular notions, because if DC decided, you know what, we're going to cut back to just the 12, like a Knights of the Round Table, 12 characters, the most popular characters, everybody else we're going to be done with. Hey, they've done stuff like that before, where they've scaled back, titles, to try to and then try to broaden out again. Marvel did the Spider-Man when the whole thing with the clone went terrible, and they called all of those Spider-Man books back to two books, and then they said, okay. And now, of course, it was going to go further from 2, call them all back so fans could have reassurance that what they were reading was going to be solid material and they could have a stronger focus on it. That that's not a big deal. But the idea of them calling back saying this is what it's going to be it for the future and we're going to go digital, No, those things don't help. Those things do not help overall. I think probably one of the best examples of it. Have either of you guys been reading Superman, Man of Tomorrow?
No.
Surprise, surprise, right? Anyway, Superman, Man of Tomorrow is a digital release. It's a digital release, and it's probably some of the best Superman storytelling that I have read in some time. These are one-shot issues. These are self-contained stories, and they're not necessarily canon stories, but they're fun, they're light, they really get Superman's character correct. And if I was to tell someone, hey, go read it, they would say, oh, where can I pick it up? Oh, it's digital. Okay, this is something that's not going into the stores. So somebody, guys have been telling me for a while, yeah, this is pretty good. I'm like, yeah, but you can only get it online. You can't go into a store and actually get it. And that's for me is a problem, because something that is resonating this much with people who are reading it is not able to be accessed in the place that most people are going to get this type of material. So you decide we're going to transition just to digital. Hey, most guys are not reading digitally to begin with. So I don't see how that helps. If that's the idea, I don't see how that helps overall at the end of the day. It's just, for me, it's a very confusing set of circumstances and events as to what they're looking for. But anybody who wants to come and have their, a cup full of Schadenfreude right now, because they got an axe to grind with DC or Marvel Comics, then you're really just not a firm player when it comes to comics overall. Because as much as you may not necessarily like Marvel or DC and independent or Kickstarter, it's all part of the overall thing, and all you have is each other. You take out any of those particular aspects, this is not some massive juggernaut. At the end of the day, they can afford to lose this. You really need everything to keep everything going at this portion.
I would only chime in that with this Kickstarters, a lot of them, they wouldn't be as regular as the Ethan Van Sciver's. Like, I guess you say Steve Rude's sketchbook, something outside of movies, where movies you have to then make the movie and then solicit it after. But stuff like Kung Fu Fury, where you release Blu-rays and DVDs, that sort of thing can be one. But the frequency, I will agree, is a little like trying to turn it into a market, which, like I think Steve Ditko, which we've talked about before, they've done their books, but the frequency is like, I don't know, every 6 months or something like that. And the same since I think Steve Rude had done a newspaper thing, which gave you for Nexus, and now he did something years later on the creation of a book. But now with the frequency, these artists, they're getting, I think those guys have multiple books and multiple titles, so it's kind of a little much. So we have to see how it goes. But I mean, most of the time they built in the sales of the book within the pledges and the different gifts that you can get the edition, the hardcore. I got a bunch here. I just got some here. One here right now. But it's just that's one difference. But ultimately, and I'm agreeing also with Ethan Van Sciver, because he's just talking. I mean, ultimately, he's in the know, because he just talked about the DC Bloodbath leaves female interns as editors. So it's like, how does he know this stuff? I mean, he's an insider, but it'd be really hard to say that they got rid of a lot of the editors that probably have salaries because they've done the work for many years, and now they had to give it to the interns. That would be pretty terrible. But I don't know if that's proof that we can't believe it, but he's going in right now. So he's not going to stop. He's out there. Like, let's look at some of his titles on this thing. Still SJW stuff. That'll get Mars upset. Can't talk about that.
Why are we even talking about this dude? I don't understand why.
He's on the inside track. He said DC loses.
What, he has one or two friends who tells him what's going on. Everybody got an inside track. We probably have friends in there after all this time.
Have an inside track.
You know what I'm trying to say? Look, all I'm just saying is that someone just put I think it's No Prize Nation was saying, hey, is it even a viable option Kickstarter for marketing guys? I don't necessarily. That's why I was saying
guys have lost their jobs.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
They got to get another job.
But this is what I'm trying to say. We're talking about creators and stuff. where are they going to go unless they start connecting? These guys have connections to all the comic book guys, right? The comic book stores, right? They have access to the big box stores, or not big box stores, but like the Barnes and Nobles and stuff, where these graphic novels and stuff are being sold on Amazon. But hold on, let me just say, the point I'm trying to make is that, you know, if we already see the comic book industry going down in terms of how the amount of sales that it once had, but what's happening too now is that there's a huge dependence by a whole group of other people. You know, you have the comic book stores, right? They depend on particularly Marvel and DC, to continually put things out so that they can sell to their customers, you know, and maintain those customers and their stores. You also have the collectors, you know, who, if we start moving to digital, how do you collect the digital comic? Is there a way to do that, Cal?
On your
collect a
computer.
digital copy?
Yeah, that's not a possible way.
Yeah, there's
as far as I can.
I mean, you can collect a digital copy in the same manner that you collect a hardcover copy. You can download it and you can keep it somewhere.
But how do you sell it as a collector? You're like, hey, this.
How do you
comic
sell
is
it as a collectible?
Yeah,
you don't.
Can't. That's the point I'm trying to make. So there's an industry of people out there doing that right now, you know. And look at the people who press and grade comics. Instead of grading the quality of the comic, they're going to probably have to just do reviews of the comics and grade it on that end. But you know, that whole pressing market is all gone. I'm not saying it should. I'm not saying there should be a change.
The press is still there. The press is still there. It's not as big, and obviously, the people on Kickstarter are connected to the press because they're making the books after that. The thing about digital, which is, I mean, this is comics turning into a vanity press, right? Either side, with Kickstarter, with DC making it, you know, possibly going to less titles. They don't have any proof that they're going to that little amount of titles. But the idea that the digital thing with the young people who like the idea of printing, people are printing out their own comic books. I don't think that's going to save the market, but if you see Ed Pisco, the guys who do cartoon kayfabe, they have their comics and people are printing out their stuff and they're doing their own sort of print thing. So there's funding, but that's not to defend digital working, but it's just one.
Wait.
Okay, no, it doesn't be a big conversation. I was just saying a bit.
But it is a big conversation. You know why? What I'm trying to get to here is that it is. But here's what I'm trying to get to here, and probably you and Cal can tell me about this. When Image, the big implosion with Image, right, happened, didn't a lot of the comics just go away, or did they stay? They just couldn't afford to continue. Am I correct?
Yeah, but comics are canceled all the time.
Right, but it was for a while. It wasn't for a day or a year. It was for a while, wasn't it?
It was for a while, but I mean, the whole comic industry was struggling. Outside of Marvel and DC got their footing. It's hard to tell with Image because you had Spawn, even though Spawn wasn't I guess, sort of in the top 10 anymore, but possibly the best selling title they had. And they possibly had some things, I can't remember any of the other hits during that period, but somehow they were maintaining before they went total indie, because they kind of went almost total indie with a couple superhero things. That's when the Robert Kirkman comes back in, because they did, what's that thing? The Super Patriot, and then Invincible. And so it's hard to remember anything else besides Spawn, because you had Top Cow stuff, which had the Darkness, and his Witchblade, with the person who passed, that artist who passed. So they had some successes with that. I think Jim Lee, on the other hand, he had, before he left, he had a lot of his cliffhanger stuff, but those guys kept running out. They had successes in the Danger Girl, and they would run to animation and or computer games, and then Battle Chasers got some numbers, and then that dude went to animation, or I think he went to video games too. So it's hard to say the successes, because you had Jim Lee doing the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and then next thing you know, all that's gone. So the only thing I can remember is really the Darkness, Spawn, of course. I think Jim Valentino wasn't publishing anything. Obviously, Rob Liefeld was out. And who's left? Eric Larson's doing Savage Dragon, but the sales on that, I don't think was anything to, to make a big deal about. I guess, I don't know. It's hard to imagine how he's making the money on that now,
Right, but what I've been thinking, probably what I'm trying to lead you down to this road, and I don't know, is that probably DC and Marvel, what they need to do is start, they had the Elsewhere titles at one point where they gave author creators partial ownership of some of these comics that hit off and did well, and what I'm saying is that, you have a brand distribution. DC's a brand. Yes, they do comics that they specialize in superheroes. Probably they start doing the Young Animals line and where they have new comics and different titles. I think they need to start doing something along those lines where you can bring out new talent, and they have the DC distribution behind them. And, they may get a Kirkman, but you won't know unless you try. You won't know unless you give people a chance. You won't know and see if a character will be successful. And if it is, probably then you can bring it back into the DC universe. And,
outsource like Marvel does to IDW.
What?
You don't know about them outsourcing like a couple titles in some of their reprints to IDW?
I've seen the reprints. I didn't know they were working that closely together.
Some adventure. I think there's a Marvel adventure line that they let IDW publish. And when they were trying to get the Burn Spec project, the editor Chris Ryle, he was trying to talk them into it, but they were kind of like, feel like that sounds a little too good. I don't know they said no, but I don't think they would want it. They want it in their regular stable if they were going to do it anyway. So yeah, I mean, there's options that they could try that they're really downsizing that much. I only wanted to say when you're talking about the sales and the marketing people, as far as comics, when we were growing up, and I didn't know, only reading about it through possibly Peter David, that was a Carol Kalish. Like that's the biggest name in sales that I knew about, but I didn't know really what they did. So it's kind of hard. It wasn't that many big names as far as the people selling and getting posters and having stuff for the, to put to the, the market, give to the distributors and the different comic stores. But then you kind of hear after that point where they say, hey, we need a new, the marketing's like, we need a new X-Men and we need them to be black. And then we get Bishop and that sort of thing, where they kind of push and they sort of do that stuff. So, I mean, I think it's hard to say that people losing jobs, but I just wanted to bring up that Carol Kalish was the only one I really knew as a fan. So, and that was way later. That was like, late teens.
But we've met these guys, and this is what the sadness of. We've met some of these guys, and in the cons, we've met them. Like I said, they've been very, particularly DC has always been, their marketing department has been very good with interviews and telling us photo ops and when events are happening and stuff like that.
Extremely friendly.
What about the Marvel one? What did they do?
That was a whole nother ball of wax, so I'm not even going to go there. But
my dealings have been primarily with DC, and I found DC to be extremely friendly. I mean, DC were guys where I came and, I wasn't on I wasn't even on the manifest, the people who were supposed to get interviews, but they said, look, you can come in and we can squeeze you in. We'll squeeze you in. If somebody cancels, you can have that spot. People were just really, they were just really cool in terms of wanting the interviews to come out. I was also, did another show where I would just approach the talent, and a lot of these guys were like, yeah, sure, talk, for a few minutes, willing to be videoed, even if they didn't necessarily know I was going to be doing video. Thank you, Lee Weeks, thank you, Greg Pack, so I just found them to be, when they were working with DC, as they're not, DC staff or anything, just to be really cool people at the end of the day. Now, I haven't had the same dealings with Marvel on that level, but I just found them to be really, really accommodating, for, the position that I was in and the stuff that we wanted to do, which was really trying to promote what they were doing on the comics and promote the comics overall. So I never had any issues like that. They were very good like that.
Yeah, you're right, but not only Image is the same way too. We've had very good things with Image in terms of their marketing people. So look, some people will say, "Oh, these are just execs; they cut," but they have relationships. They have relationships with sellers, with the like I said, the comic book companies and the stores, and that's who I feel with, because if you look at the list of people who are, they're getting rid of people who have a relationship with the stores, and the comic book stores is where we go to buy. Yeah, we can easily buy it from Amazon or directly from the publisher, but where do you get the knowledge and breadth and the discussions you get at comic book stores? You know, this is the place where you can come around and just shoot the breeze with people. And other people there, they're going to talk, hey, this guy is good. Read this. This is a really good episode. This is a good issue. Or, this stuff is trash. I'm not, they will tell you point blank. They're not trying to push. They don't have an agenda. They're like, I like it. I've met quite a few comic guys who, people retail, I haven't read it yet, and I can't give you an opinion on what it is. But, there's a lot of comments, or talk to such and such. And that's a good thing, when you're trying to find out what to spend your hard-earned dollars on, because there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of comics coming out right now. I mean, I think back in 2013, I'm seeing some figure that there were over 2,000 comic book stores in 2013. I don't think there's that many now, or if it is, it's probably around that amount. But this is slowly going away, and this pandemic has not helped it at all in any way whatsoever. The market forces are driving these down, and of course, if there are less comic book stores around where people can come together and purchase comics and talk to the people at the store, there's going to be less sales generally coming from the comic books going forward. I know for a fact several of my friends have stopped buying physical comics. They just, that's not true. Let me rewind it. Some have gone pure digital. They're like, hey, this is a way for me to go. They've gone through the Comixology or directly through DC or Marvel, whatever the retailers are. And others have said, you know what, I'm not even going to go to comic book stores anymore. Just order the comics and have it sent to me at home. And you're like, wow, that's a pretty big change, And I mean, I don't know how you feel about that, Cal or PD, but these type of things, when you have relationships, if you no longer have a person who has long-standing relationships with these companies, with these stores, then it's easy for you to say, let's just cut it. We don't need to be dealing with this. We can get the money directly,
Well, I would chime in to say that's the horror, and I'm not bringing up Ethan Van Sciver as being right, because his celebration of the end of of Marvel and DC means the end of the stores, which I go to Midtown on 7th Avenue. And that's the store I regularly go to. There's one in my neighborhood off of, I don't go to it enough, but when I need a fix, I go out there I think it's on Valley Road. But it's like, that's one of the things that when you're saying you're kind of applauding the failure because of the bad practices, but these stores don't need that. These stores need business, and they need comic books, and the talent themselves, which is his peers, they need place to go and saying, hey, we have the connects with who's those guys with the actual printing and all this stuff. We get comics done and this, that, and the other. Obviously, I got a bunch of them here. You can print your stuff and have it sent to you in the mail and this, that, and the other. But at the same time, these stores need help, and we need things to stay together for a little bit longer, and possibly forever, as long as there's need for comic books. So, I mean, this is great going in and then seeing not just comics, but toys and stuff you want to pick out. And regretfully, I've bought too many Batman action figures. I've got almost 3 of them now, but that's the thing.
There are no other action figures to worry about, bro.
Well, you have to have the Dark Knight action figure. So I had to get that animated Dark Knight action figure. Then, of course, Todd McFarlane put out a Batman action figure. And then I also had a Greg Capullo Batman action figure. And then I was like, I kind of overdid. I can't get this other Batman. So I feel like I'm a kid again.
I haven't bought a Superman action figure. The last one I bought was one based on Lee Bermejo's design, but I never pulled the trigger on the Todd McFarlane stuff. I looked and I said, I should probably get this. And I said, no, if I do that, I'm going to start buying action figures again. I don't have the room. I said, I never take them out of the box. They just sit there. And then then I got some little kid always, hey, when are you going to take that toy out the box and give it to me? So better off with the comics if they just don't want to read. I'm like, I don't want to read that.
That's the best part when you got kids around, because these things just sit around here doing nothing, and then the kids take them and put them and make them bash them into each other. I was like a friend of mine, well, they call me Uncle Sam. A friend of mine's daughter was over, and she immediately knew what to do. Bash them together.
So, hey, Uncle Calvin, when you gonna take that? When you gonna take that toy out of the package? It's like when I get around to it. Well, you never take any. Oh, you look at this. This toy's all over the place. You never took them out of the package. You can take it out of the package and give it to me. It's like, you need to get out of here, little kid. You need to get out of here right now. Okay, so why don't you take this comic book? You know I don't want to read. Let's look at the pictures. I can't be bothered with that. I need to bash some toys together. I came down here for.
Yep.
Overall, I don't know what, I just don't know. Part of me is really, normally I think I have my finger on the pulse of this type of stuff, but there's just a lot of different additives to the normal cycle of publishing right now that, you know, I've never experienced before. So I look at it, part of me has a bit of trepidation. I have to admit that, you know, this could be something where, you know, and I might not be able to go and get a comic anymore. And I'm of this guy, I don't want to read a digital comic. I want to read a comic in my hands. I want to see the art. That's what this medium is about. If it was supposed to be digital, it would be a totally different experience. But this is something that, I mean, I can find out, if I can read a digital comic for the story, but the experience is supposed to be something in hand. That's what the whole thing goes into, with the art and, you know, paper and smell, all that stuff that goes along with it. Now, I understand that's changed for a lot of people as comic books became more like trading cards and came with the business. They're just like, hey, let's make certain this thing, it's almost like the toys. Let's make certain this thing stays in the plastic, keep it as pristine as possible. Let's even do better. Let's get it off the CGC, put it in harder plastic, make sure it's got a grade on it, and then we're just gonna file it away until there's a movie. And we're gonna bring it out, sell it hundreds of dollars into the like, did you ever read it? Huh? You can read these things? Like, yeah, you can. Did you ever read it? Did you even read the digital copy? Like, no. You know, so a lot of it's almost treating a comic, which is really for entertainment. It's almost treating like a commodity, like oil or gold or something. It's so strange to see that approach. But there are people who realize, hey, you know, there's real value in this stuff, in the story, you know, in the art, if you actually read it and you get that experience, not just, not just for speculation. And I understand anything that's viable is going to have a healthy amount of speculation. You know, that's everything from movies to radio to television, you know, to comic books. I understand that when it comes to entertainment, but you go this route, okay, I just hope it doesn't go the route where, you know, you don't have that experience any longer. That is my major concern.
Yeah,
Well,
I feel for you, bro. I do, and I think that's the key thing. I just look at it as just I see these cuts, and I think that it's just going to be continuing a long pattern. You know, it's like a cut to the bottom. You know, you can only cut so much before people say, you know, you hit bone. You know what I'm trying to say? What are you doing to make things better? DC's had how many different imitations? I think someone was talking about right here. I think there's Metal Blood Lord is talking about DC Rebirth. Yeah, DC Rebirth was what? You know, a reaction to 52, the new 52. A new 52 wasn't that a reaction to Crisis, right? Or it's just that they've had so many different changes of continuing. And you have here, and I know they have to do these things to sell, but I have to go back and where I say that, the movies are making billions off of the stuff that they off of the IP, these guys, and they're not getting any of that money to help support them. And definitely, and according to, what is this one? This guy here, his name is No Prize Nation. The comic book shops are the backbone of the industry. These are the guys the marketing was dealing with, where you have, they develop the superfans. These are the comics, the movies, the TV shows, and the conventions, you know? And here you're cutting these guys and all that knowledge that they once had because it's not making money now, you know? But it takes time to develop talent, you know? It takes time to get these things to work the way you want them to work. And the short industry, we lost $5 million. Didio, you gotta go. Everybody else is walking out the door. We can't pay these artists this much, you know? That's why I'm saying, sorry, go.
And I would say one of the things that I was sorry to see with comics is that you used to have these, it was a wider range of comics and you had these backup features. And that's where you got new talent. You could come in and say, okay, we can't put you on X-Men, but we can put you on Millie the Model. Okay. And you can start, no, that was fine because you were selling Millie the Model. That's how broad comics were. You had romance comics, model comics, superhero comics. And you can say, look, I can't put you on Superman because, we got guys on that. But you can start to learn the business by doing some stuff with Millie the Model. Write a few stories, show that you can submit stories and submit them on time, and you understand the character, and you can move up from there. it got to the point where you can't even, if you're a guy like me and you want to write comics, you can't even break in. You got to like literally have somebody in there who's like, you know, like Grant Morrison and says, hey, why don't you give this guy a shot? Let him write a couple of backup features. There's no other process. And that shows you how insular, you know, that shows you how insular comics became. And that's part of the problem that they have overall, where you want to have a little bit more, you want new talent. Well, you got to have a way for talent to come in. Where are you getting people? And where they want is, oh, we want you to be established already. We want you to have done something with a smaller publisher, or you published a novel and it was a New York Times bestseller, and then we can bring you over. And you have guys over there like, okay, that's one way to go about it. But you have guys who really understand these characters and they used to do like little contests here and there, like come in, submit a story, you know, we'll pick somebody. They used to even have there was a class you used to take. I think, who was it? Joe Kelly was one of the guys they discovered from this class you took, where they were literally taking a class saying, look, you want to write comics? Come take the class. And anybody who showed promise, you know, they would try to do those sorts of things because you have people there who are looking to do stuff. So it's hard to say, well, look, you know, I understand the talent takes time, but what are you doing to get talent in? There's like no farm system. It's not like, you know, Major League Baseball where you can go like to the minors or something. It just becomes, you have to already show that you can sell something and now you can come over. And that's a delimiter, if there ever was one, on, you know, on expanding and making certain that you have a robust talent base for you.
Yeah,
Well,
it is.
one thing I would add to that is that it's actual printing, the golden age. Let's look at all the different editions you can get, this being the DC, you know, having something like this. There's so much stuff they've been printing in such beautiful editions, you know, whether the cost of them is less or, you know, doesn't cost them that much. It's like to be at the end of the road or, you know, the bloodletting going on. It's kind of sad. So they've given us so many editions, and I wouldn't want it to become a reprint market where they just decide, you know what, we're going to keep reprinting Deadpool and this and Dark Knight. Here's a new Dark Knight edition, that sort of thing. That would be kind of dull in my mind. But you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, we have someone, Ms. Heffick one. And they're saying, well, this will hopefully lead to more indie titles being created. And that's the same thing I've been saying this whole time, that I think that hopefully and they have more options to do this stuff and better quality, you know, and the people are going to be more interested in reading and going out to these things, you know. You know, it's just, this hits me hard, this whole DC stuff, because
Indie as far as outside of Marvel, outside of DC.
well, if they're cutting the people who are in there, you know, it's hard to see they're going to be there. DC needs to reform. Marvel needs to reform how they do their talent. Probably need to do what some of the record companies do, where they go after people on SoundCloud who are selling a lot. You know, like Doja Cat, for example. I mean, just to name a couple, just name one. And there's several other examples. And then what happens? They're selling well. Then you get brought into the music, and you say, all right, you've done the minor leagues. Now come play with us. We're going to put some money behind you. You know, and or some of the publishers have done, like book publishers, you know, these guys do their own indie press and they do well. And they're like, all right, you know what? We'll take care of everything from you and we'll help you. You know, we'll take care. All you need to do is just write the book. You don't have to worry about doing everything else like you were doing. And probably that's the model they may have to do to help them out, to find people who have talent and have a following to be able to do that. I mean, I remember talking to somebody and they were like, they're trying to get into music. And so they went to the music exec and the music exec asked them, all right, so how many followers do you have on Instagram? How many followers do you have on SoundCloud? How many followers? And I was like, yo, that's funny, you know? But yeah.
That's where a lot of it is with the entertainment industry. It's like you already have to show that you can develop a following on your own first, before you even come over here, which is counterintuitive to the whole thing. Because look, if I can develop all these followings without you, what do I need you for?
Yeah, I know. And I guess this is where these guys are going. They've been with corporate job for all these years, you know, and now you're getting cut out into the wind, basically, you know. So guys, let's wrap this up, man. So it's pretty sad. I just want to thank everybody who has commented on our discussion on this, and we hope the best for all those people and their families as they go through this difficult time, and hopefully they can come up with some new things. Hopefully we've given some new ideas to make you guys think of different ways to look. Hopefully we can, and hopefully if you guys come out with some good product, we can support you. And lastly, for the comic book shops and stores and and that, you know, hopefully they're able to continue to maintain doing a good job out there. But hey, final words, guys. Cal?
No, I think I've said enough.
Yeah,
Petey?
that's what I mean. I just want the stores and everyone to keep going. So, and DC to be around, and not just be Superman and Batman mysteries. Anyway, that's all for me.
We're getting more Batman. That's what they're saying. There's going to be more Batman. I don't know how much more, but there's going to be more Batman as it is. So listen, everybody. Spinner Rack.
Out.
Oh, sorry. Subscribe, comment, give us a big thumbs up. Spinner Rack.
Out.
Out.
Later, guys.